Hall with us, as well as Kathy Walters. So we'll move right on to item number 7, staff reports and presentations. And we'll begin with 7.1.1 water grant reprofile, and our CAO Diane Marbuquet is online.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Connor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. This first item on the agenda is the water grant reprofile and seeking approval to submit this reprofile to the Union of BC Municipalities, the UBCM, who are the funders of this program. So just a little bit of background. Back in, I think it was October of 2023, Council approved for staff to submit a list of projects to the UBCM for this $5 million water grant that had been announced for the Village of Lytton. When that submission was made, there were a number of projects outlined, and then there was a kind of a large amount left at the end, which relates to some additional repairs that we have engaged a consultant on to prepare a report for us. We don't have the report yet, so we're not asking for permission to submit those projects at this time. That will have to come back later. What we are looking to do is make a couple of adjustments to the projects that were included initially and incorporate another amount. So the other amount, trying to explain this in a way that's as simple as possible, but in 2019, the Village of Lytton was approved for a water grant for $1,539,000. So this would have been a couple of years before the fire. Approximately $245,000 of it was spent, and the remaining of it is still outstanding. So $1,293,000. So that amount has been authorized for the Village of Lytton for water repairs, and we have not submitted claims against it yet. This is another grant program run by the UBCM. So in recent conversations with UBCM about I was giving an update on the $5 million grant. We began discussing this older grant, and they said at this time, the easiest way to administer the two grants would be to add them together, create one list of priorities, and then, work through those and report and claim against one list versus trying to keep track of two different lists. The other complicating factor is there were some projects on the initial grant that were also on the second grant. So the replacement of the SCADA system at the water treatment plant that we've talked about before and is now essentially complete was actually on both project lists. So it was becoming a little bit confusing, which grant were we going to claim that under and how was that going to work? So what we have done is we have taken the $5 million grant, we have added to it the remainder of the first grant, which is $1,293,000, and we've come up with a list of projects for that amount. And we would like to submit that to UBCM for their approval, and then we'll be able to move forward. So the list of projects is included in the report. There are a couple projects that were proposed initially, which for different reasons are no longer considered a priority. And an example of one of those was in the initial request, there was $350,000 allocated to replace fire hydrants at the school. Well, as it turns out, the fire hydrants are actually on the school property, and it's their responsibility to look after that. So we won't be doing that project. So we had initially allocated money to that project. We're now allocating zero to that project because it's no longer needed. The projects that were included in the first grant, which are not duplicate, are there was a project around district zone meters. So that, excuse me, there were some claims submitted against the original grant that we don't have any detail on because our records were all lost in the fire. And the information that is sent to UBCM when a claim is submitted is just in a very summary format. So we've claimed $246,000. We're not 100% sure which project we've claimed it against, but we believe that it's based on based on what the team is able to see. We believe it's against the district zone meters. So what I've been told is that there are meters that exist in the wells. We need an additional $10,000 to add those meters to the SCADA system so that we can read them. They're there, so we might as well connect them up to the system so that we can read information from them. So that's one of the projects that has carried forward from the previous, the earlier grant. Another project, excuse me, that has carried forward is looking at a new main line along, coming along the highway and then down into the village, which would require a pressure releasing valve, a PRV. So that is on the list. And then the other one is to look at the viability of resurrecting well number 1 and whether or not that's a valid water source for us. So that was on the initial grant and we've kept it on the list. I'm not going to go through all the projects because we've talked about most of these before, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions about it. I have worked with the team to go through and relook at this list again, and kind of they're the ones that are kind of putting forward essentially these recommendations on which ones to move forward and the estimated costs on that. You can see at the very bottom of the list, there is still $4 million to be allocated once this water report is received. And that's going to be on bigger issues like improving the fire flows into the village. So the water for fire. So that's kind of the big outstanding project that we're waiting for the report on.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions? Be here?
No.
I think that's very good news that they were willing to combine those grants to make our life, your life, a lot easier. Very good news. And I'm assuming you just discovered it or just found out about the 2019 grant.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, we'd sort of seen some references to it, but we weren't really sure what it was. And then there wasn't a good kind of trail of information in the village records about it. But when we went on to the UBCM, the online system, there was information in there. So then we started there and then followed up with them, and they've helped us fill in some of the gaps.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a recommended motion to receive this report for information. Councillor McCann.
I'll make the motion, but before I do, just for information, Diane. So we have your information submitted, and then there's this little chart that says the history and issue and suggested action and status. So that is like a working document for the people doing all this work?
That's the document that was provided to council in October of 2023 for the initial approval. So those are the projects that council has considered before and approved to be submitted forward to UBCM. Those are incorporated in the chart that's up in the report with the numbers attached.
Okay, and so it shows parts that are done and then all the rest are blank because none of that work has happened yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, because I remember when I read it earlier and I was a little bit confused about what I was reading there. Thank you. So
oh,
I
no,
will
sorry.
so
I'm sorry, Councillor McCann. Can I just clarify something you just said? This is the actual schedule that you saw before. So some of this work has been completed now. I just reproduced the one that you received in the past.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Get it.
I apologize. There is a recommended motion, and it is actually to approve the grant, the reprofiling, and submit it to UBCM.
Yes. Okay, I will make that motion.
Hannah's making that motion. Seconder, please. Todd, are there any further questions or comments? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, on to item number 7.1.2, which is property tax presentation, and CFO Mombercat will present.
Well, thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Kathy, I think you have my presentation there.
Oh, that's cool.
So this property tax presentation is really just a primer for council. You know, as we've discussed before, that we don't have the final BC assessment roll until the end of March, and we don't receive rates from other organizations that we collect on behalf of until sort of March, April. But I just wanted to review the property tax calculations and where we are right now and what 2024 looked like versus what we look like where we're sitting now. So in the next coming weeks, we will start to at the next meeting, we will see a draft version of the 5-year financial plan. And then following that, we'll move into the meetings where there will be bylaws to adopt the plan and then to adopt the tax rates. So like I said, this is just kind of a primer to remind everybody how the system works and how the calculations work. Is that presentation up? Because I don't see it.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
You don't see it? Okay.
We can see it.
That's okay. I can just go. I have a copy in front of me, so it's fine. I'll just ask Kathy to flip when I need her to flip. So we could just go to the first slide, please.
Okay, we're just a second, please. We're just trying to get it up again.
Mm,
Okay, now we have to.
There, can you see it now?
yes,
Okay,
just need to make it a slideshow.
yeah, there we are.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we go back one.
Back one more yet.
One more. There we go.
Okay.
So, so for the property tax rates, you know, there's kind of two components that go into calculating the property tax rates. We have the property tax rate or the mill rate that Council of the Village of Lytton will set, and then we have the assessed value, which comes to us from BC Assessment. So BC Assessment do their work in the latter part of the year. Beginning of January, they produce a tax roll and send out tax notices. People have a certain amount of time to appeal, and then they confirm a final tax roll at the end of March. So we'll expect it last week of March, first week of April. And so this year at the February 11th meeting, council directed staff to prepare our 5-year financial plan, including a 6% increase in the property tax revenue for 2025. So that increase equates to $27,139, and that'll bring our total taxes up to $370,502. That's just municipal property taxes. Next slide, please. So then in addition to our own property taxes, we collect taxes on behalf of a number of other organizations, the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, the Thompson Regional Hospital District, the school, police, BC Assessment Authority, and the Municipal Finance Authority. So we add these on to the tax notice that we send to our taxpayers, and they remit these amounts to us, and then we turn around and forward them on to the organization. So the next slide. So the rates that are charged for school, BC Assessment, and the Municipal Finance Authority, those are we just get given a rate to add to our mill rate from those organizations. For the TNRD and the hospital district and the police, we get the total dollars that are needing to be collected, and then those are allocated to the different property classes based on assessed value. So in 2024, the total that we collected on behalf of others was 173,000. And in 2023, the number was 90,000. And you may remember us talking about this last year when we got the rates to collect, the school rate had not been adjusted to take into account the additional assessed value that existed in Lytton, you know, the increase from one year to the other. So we ended up collecting quite a large amount. I think it was close to 90, like about $90,000 of that 173 was for the school district alone. Next slide, please. And so just the way that the calculation works, so in 2025, a 6% increase in the residential tax revenue would mean that we need to collect $56,380. In order to do that, based on a preliminary assessment value of 21 million, we would set a mill rate at 2.6298. So that's for every $1,000 of assessment value, we would collect 2.6298. In 2024, because the assessment value was lower, the mill rate was 3.5261. So as the assessment value increases, the mill rate comes down in order to collect a similar amount of revenue. And just for information, if we applied the same mill rate in 2025 that we applied in 2024, our residential tax revenue would be 75,596 compared to 56,380,000, which is what we're actually going to target. But just to show you the difference, if you don't adjust your mill rate, you end up collecting a lot more taxes. Next slide, please. So this is just a comparison of the 2025 versus the 2024. If those are the preliminary assessed values, if those are confirmed, those would be the mill rates that we would be charging across the various classes. So class 1 is residential, class 2 is utilities. Those are capped at $40, or sorry, 40 is the maximum mill rate. 4 is major industry, and class 6 is commercial. So those are really the 4 classes that we have in Lytton. And the comparison of the mill rates, you can see in all cases except utilities, the mill rates are coming down because the assessed values have continued to increase pretty significantly.
Excuse me, I wonder if we could slide those
Make it
boxes
speaker view
over.
so we can see the whole screen.
Yeah.
I think if you put the small button, like the minus sign at the top right, it goes to just one speaker,
Yeah,
where that even works. Yeah,
even the bottom can come down. Thank you.
thanks.
Oh,
And then the next slide, please.
Can you hold there, Diane? Because we haven't
Sure.
seen that part of the screen yet.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Diane.
Okay, and so then the final slide is just to compare the totals. So this is assuming, which is not likely to be exactly the case, but this is assuming that the taxes collected on behalf of others is the same in 2024 and 2025, because we don't have the 25 rates yet. But if you look at this, it's just really to demonstrate, or just to keep in mind, that when we're setting our tax rate, there's a much larger impact for our taxpayers because we have to collect these amounts on behalf of others. So, in class 1 residential, our mill rate would be 2.6298. However, last year we collected 3.3667 on behalf of others. So people's actual property tax bill would be more than twice what it would be if we were only collecting for ourselves. So it's just an important consideration when we're setting the rates, just to remember that other rates go on top of ours, and end up in being the expense for our residents. If the rates remain the same in 2025, we will collect a total taxes of $578,000 compared to 2024 of $516,000 across all 4 classes. And that's it, unless somebody has some questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? We can go back to speaker view again.
Thanks, Kathy. So this is Diane, CAO Monberquette, a primer, so to speak, for a discussion that we're going to have regarding whether we want to keep the mill rate the same.
There won't be a suggestion to keep the mill rate the same. We have started preparing everything based on a 6% revenue increase. And so it's just to demonstrate, how the math works, and as a primer to remind council of that, so that when we get to actually considering the tax bylaw, we'll probably run through most of this again. But I find it always helps to kind of talk about it multiple times to make sure everybody, when it comes time to adopt the tax bylaw, everybody's comfortable that they understand where the numbers came from.
Thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions? Councillor Lightfoot?
I'm just wondering, is there any avenue for this council to advocate? I'm looking at, in particular, the school rate. And I understand they probably have increased budgets also, but do you think it would be prudent perhaps to point out the discrepancy of collected taxes over the last 2 years?
It would probably be appropriate to wait until we get the rate and see if we have a similar situation to what we had last year, and then perhaps talk about a strategy to address that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we do have a motion to accept this report for information.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor McCann, seconder, Toss, all those in favor,
Hi.
and carried. Thank you, Staple Lumbercat. We'll move on to Director of Development Staff Report, and I believe we have Berta on the line regarding the Development Services Activity Report, which is our monthly report.
Actually, no such luck. You're stuck with me this evening.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm here and I'm croaking along a little bit. So when I pulled up the agenda to review the report for this evening's meeting, I just want to make a note that in my absence, the numbers did not get transferred from attachment 1 to the table on the first page. All of the information is there, but you have some blank spots. So you have, this month, we have 1 additional development variance permit, and we have 2 zoning bylaw amendment applications. We've been in discussion about a subdivision, and as best as I can tell without being able to confirm with Jack today, it's reviewed at least 1 building permit, but otherwise, all of the information is there, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, so as I said, we get these reports once a month, and it's hard to believe a month has gone by already. Are there any comments, questions regarding this?
Have you noticed any difference in trends or anything of note in last?
Yeah, I think that things will just generally continue to start picking up as the weather warms. That's always the case. We sort of have 2 busy periods, right? We have the early spring where everyone gets spring fever and wants to get things done, and then we have the September rush when everyone's back to school, and again everyone feels like they're beginning again. And so I think we're on trend to see those things yet again.
Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, motion please to accept this report for information.
So move Lightfoot.
Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor McCann, all those in favor. Aye. Carried. Thank you, Corey. Get the name right there. All right, we move on to we have Jim McDonald online joining us regarding our emergency management update. So welcome, Jim.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
And do you have a PowerPoint for me, Lisa?
It's just coming up. Yeah. There we go.
Great, I see it now too. Yeah, so again, just kind of a quick update and just a little information on where we're likely going to go in the next couple months until the end of the year. So if we can just, next slide, please. Great, and again, just to remind everybody that the emergency plan as it exists now is really something that I continually review and revise as things change in the community. Added an evacuation plan to the overall plan. And once that's done, and I put all those changes in front of the emergency program committee, then we'll put it forward to council for formal adoption. At the same time, we'll probably discuss making the public facing plan. So pretty much exactly the same as our overall emergency plan. It'll just with just details, phone numbers, contact information will be taken away from the public facing document because that's constantly changing, and some of it is private information. We continue to, as we did in 2024, to take Emergency Operations Center training. And some of that training is delivered to us by a contractor, Holistic Emergency Preparedness, and we will, in this year, we'll also be taking on some courses with the Justice Institute of BC, and those courses will be funded through Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I also intend to bring more tabletop exercises. We did one late last year. And again, the tabletop exercises kind of go through a pretend disaster scenario, see how we do, and it points to challenges that we may have that we can address through training to try and fix those or negate those. We continue to discuss and communicate well with our regional partners. And I think it's important to note that since we last spoke and since late last year, there's been a new committee started, and it's really emergency managers of the canyon. And we agree to meet as needed or once a month to discuss how we best communicate and collaborate with each other, not only during emergencies, but on a day-to-day basis as well. All things emergency management. An agreement is being drawn up, and I'll forward that once the final details are made, and then we can decide to sign in or not. And I think it's important to note right now that so far, all of our emergency management activities have involved the limited staff that we have, plus members of council. And moving forward, we should try and get more residents involved in emergency management just to build our capacity. Questions or comments before we go to the next slide?
Are there any questions, comments?
I'm kind of curious how we go about that, Jim, involving, do you basically send out an invitation for people to come to emergency management training, or do you call up your neighbor that seems like they got an axe to grind and say, well, come on and learn how to do this, or what do you do?
Yeah, thanks for that, and a little of each, but really, in the past, I've started, getting neighborhoods and the public involved in emergency management just by bringing personal preparedness to light and doing that with through training, and then based on the level of engagement that we see, then we can invite people to be part of our emergency program to get their local knowledge and their perspective.
Right, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next slide.
We're done.
Oh, sorry, was there? Councilor McCann, was there something?
No, he's moving on.
Oh, yeah, good. Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, and again, just on that last question and answer, it's really about getting a neighborhood emergency preparedness program together. The slide sort of, photograph in the slide illustrates a past neighborhood program that I've worked with, and just doing um, um, uh, fire extinguisher training, something that very little of us have had a chance to experience. We can bring that training in, so people are just a little bit more prepared to look after themselves, in as much as our local capacity to respond to emergencies, even day-to-day emergencies, may be overwhelmed if more than one emergency event happens at a time. So really, this neighborhood emergency preparedness program is all about assisting residents on being able to better look after themselves and not being as dependent on emergency services. And of course, the fire extinguisher is just a very good, easy to see experiment. I mean, we also talk about emergency support services, how to look after neighbors, perhaps how to look after folks that may have some mobility challenges. We can bring communications into it, see if anyone is interested or already is on amateur radio being like the ham radio, being able to talk over two-way radio with neighboring communities and others in the province. I hope I made that clear. So if no questions on that one, we can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so we look at our emergency management committee as it stands now, and again, very few Village of Lytton staff members, as well as some members of council. There's been some basic emergency operations center training, and have taken part in a tabletop exercise, and often in our face-to-face training, we also have like an afternoon tabletop exercise. And again, I think it's time that we start to invite our neighbors, our partners, which I'll explain in the next slide. But basically, again, it's been a very closed session so far. We've had neighboring communities and First Nations involved in some of the training, but now it's time, I think, we start to invite further involvement from police, fire, ambulance, perhaps the school district, and getting, again, more input, more people aware of what's going on, so we can communicate and collaborate better in the event of. And the next slide should, if I did it right, should explain that. Yeah, so again, we'll include in our regional partners any Indigenous governing bodies who we communicate well with right now through our Fire Smart program and other initiatives. But again, I think it's time to get our partners at RCMP, strong fire presence, the BC Ambulance Service, and then again, select members of the Fraser Canyon Emergency Management Group that I spoke to earlier. It's also a great time to get schools involved, any community groups or interested citizens, to let them be involved in this and part of the problem solving and that we go through in this committee. And we will continue to offer emergency management training to the committee members as it comes up. Quite a full schedule here over the next couple of months. Comments, questions? Oh, yeah, okay. And then just to close up, again, we're going to continue to look at the 4 phases of emergency management, not just the response side, but mitigation. That's as we seen during Fire Smart activities. We help take some of the risk away or the hazard away. The whole preparedness part, we need to embrace that a little bit more, and we'll do that through civic outreach as well as amongst our staff. And then on the response end of things, just so everyone understands what happens in response and what roles each partner plays in response. And then on the recovery side, of course, we've had some experience with recovery, but we'll continue to look at recovery for any upcoming incidents that we might see, and recovery is a big part of our emergency plan. I think it's important to note, I've highlighted it there, that all levels of government, council, our staff and residents have a part to play. But just wrapping up, we're looking for any comments or questions. Otherwise, that's a wrap for me.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Jim?
This may be, I may be,
Councillor Toss?
thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I may be exposing my ignorance, but I'm not sure I know much about the Fraser Canyon Emergency Management Group.
Yeah, and that's kind of brand new. First meeting was in January. We've had another meeting since. And again, it's all the First Nations regional district involved. In the past, perhaps we have not been able to communicate as clearly as we wanted. So it was put forward that we form a committee that would address things more on a regional scale. That, again, first meeting in January. We've had another meeting since, and now trying to come up with the terms of reference. Once that's done, I'll forward that to everybody so you're all aware of what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I had
Councillor McCann?
I'm quite keen to see us follow up on their neighborhood idea there, Jim. Is that something that will happen when you come back? Because I'm just trying to figure out how on earth we'd do that without you.
Yeah, at the very latest when I come back, but likely might start some online training sessions for those that might want to get involved. Otherwise, I'll follow up when I get back. I've been successful in these neighborhood emergency programs, both in the city of Surrey and in Chilliwack, and it was mainly with gated communities or elders residences where people were neighbors because they were surrounded by a fence or a building. And I think it would work very well here too, because our residents are not too wide scattered once everyone returns to the community. So it should be easy to get some folks involved.
Thank you. Okay, so we need a motion to accept Jim's report for information. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
One second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor? And carried. All right, we will,
I guess that's it for staff reports now. And we'll move on to council reports. And I have mine here. So on February 26th, we had a budget presentation, that we attended. And I was just really pleased to see this process get started and appreciate all the work that our CFO has been putting into this. I believe the middle of May is when the budget has to be completed by. On March 4th, along with Councillor McCann, we hosted a student group from a high school in Chilliwack. We held a presentation here in the hall, answered questions, and then toured them around the village. They were very interested in learning about the events of the past 4 years. The final question to us was, what can they do for Lytton? And I think our answer was something like, help us tell the story. So take what you've learned when they came here to Lytton and share it out. On March the 6th, I attended a TNRD meeting in Kamloops. There was a motion there passed to have the TNRD staff reach out to the village of Lytton as well as the First Nations in our area regarding the level of library service and potential location of returning this service to Lytton. So we should be seeing the TNRD staff do that in the next short while. March 10th, coffee with the mayor. On Monday, this past Monday, actually, yesterday, and a coffee with the mayor in the morning, and the Hub PAC Project Advisory Committee meeting was at Shkapa in the afternoon. And I just want to share that at that meeting, aside from some updates, including that we have signed and finalize the contribution agreement with Canada on the funding, which is good news. There was a lot of discussion and general discussion around elements of the project, site layout, including the use of the space. There seemed to be a very good support for recommending that the swimming pool go back into the location it was in prior to the fire. And then the need to find out what organizations such as museum might be looking for regarding space in the hub, should they return to that hub. Today, March the 11th, this morning, I attended a roundtable on tariffs. It was a Zoom session that was organized by UBCM, and it was led by Brittany Anderson, and she's the Minister of State for Local Governments and Rural Communities for the province, as well as Ravi Kahlon, who is the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, and Trish Mondeo, who is the President of UBCM. And Ravi is also the chair of a new cabinet committee to lead a whole of government approach to protect BC workers, businesses, economy against the ongoing tariffs. So along with other mayors from BC, as well as chairs of regional districts, there were questions, concerns regarding the U.S. tariff threat. So that's what this roundtable was about. Many questions were raised on what the tariff might potentially mean for procurement policies, for capital projects, impacts on local businesses, purchase of emergency equipment. Apparently, emergency vehicles all come out of the States.
Yeah.
So there's some communities that are in the process of purchasing fire trucks, for example, and impacts on tourism and other economic drivers. So it was lots of sharing of concerns and questions to them. And the province is encouraging local governments to bring their concerns forward to continue doing that. So there we go. That is my report for this council meeting. And we'll move on to Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I don't have a lot to report since our last meeting, February 28th. I attended the evening budget session the night following our last meeting and appreciate the participants. It's not an exciting topic, but people getting involved is, we're very grateful for people getting involved. On the 27th, I attended a meeting with the chamber to plan for our gala. And that's on April 25th. And we have another meeting tomorrow. So there'll be more information sort of publicly out there tomorrow. But if you're listening, save the date, April 25th, if you'd like to get involved. And it's targeted for, promoting businesses as a chamber is. And was at yesterday's coffee with council. I'm always so happy to see the regulars there and the conversations that take place. It's great to see community coming out. And on a personal note, I got occupancy on Thursday on my new house on Fraser Street. So smiling a bit more these last few days. And thank you to everybody on staff as always.
Thank you, Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. The mayor and I spent a bit of time together, things in the last couple of weeks. So February 26th, I attended the budget information session with everyone else. And I also would like to say thank you to the resident who attended by Zoom. It was nice to have somebody watching. Yeah. March 3rd and 10th, I came here to the hall for coffee with the mayor. The 4th of March, I joined the mayor with that group of 40 grade 10 students from Imagine High School in Chilliwack for a presentation and tour of the village. On the 6th, I attended the Chief Spentland Park Task Force meeting. The 7th, I connected with Sarah Kamal regarding the draft WOM report. So that will finally be coming out after a very long time. March 10th, went yesterday with the mayor to the Community Hub Advisory Committee meeting. And I always enjoy those meetings because they're a nice group to work with. People are so engaged in what we're trying to do. It's nice to spend time working and focusing on that. It was a positive experience answering the genuine questions of the high school students during their visit. And I believe that we can all continue to learn from our unique experience here in Lytton. And it's encouraging to see the representatives from the Mennonite Disaster Relief Organization back in town to help another family with their rebuild. Yeah, and that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle
Nothing new to report.
and Councillor Lightfoot.
I too attended the budget presentation. Appreciate the clarity that staff was able to give us on that. And coffee's on the 3rd and the 10th. And that was my involvement for the last few weeks.
Great, thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of the council meeting and public council meeting. We're going to be moving into closed meeting. So, before we move into closed meeting, I do have one item to be released. And that is item number 24-132C. It's a resolution that council approves the terms of reference for the Project Advisory Committee for the Villages Community Hub as amended. And I believe that is attached in this agenda. So now it's time for us to move into closed session. So we need a motion, please, to do so. Councillor Lightfoot and a seconder. I'll second Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. That's great. So thank you everyone for attending and thank you staff for handling situations at the spur of the moment so well. I'll turn it back over to CEO Starshenko.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So that concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting of March 11th, 2025. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into our closed session. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful night. And I invite council to take a short recess while I reset the meeting to close.